Hello, everyone, and welcome to Grip Lock Foundation Disc Golf's weekly podcast. I'm Hunter, and joined, as always, by Trevor. Today, we're going to go over the GMC results, talk a little bit about the MVP coming up, and then I'm going to talk some about the PDGA rules, because there's been a lot of random talk online about rules, a few of them in particular, how they should apply, and stuff like that, that I think it would be beneficial to talk through. And look at the actual rule book as to what that says versus what we sometimes think it says. But let's just go first to GMC. We saw Kevin Jones take it down.
Yeah.
His biggest win of the year by far. Well, I can't say by far. He's won the Majestic and the Mid-America Open. But this is his first Pro Tour win this year. I think he won Idlewild last year.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But outside of that, I don't really know many more Pro Tour wins.
No, that was his biggest win, I think, Idlewild. He's been knocking on the door this season, and I think it's just been a matter of time. But the question, when a guy hasn't won, I mean, he did win on tour once last year, but this year, as far as like the big question is like, can he go like down the stretch and like, especially in a 4-round event too? Like you've got to go 4 rounds, can't let up, and he held off, Paul, for the towards the end there. That's who he really had to hold off. So had to hold off good competitors, and Paul didn't play bad.
No.
And especially in the last round, like he played fine. Like if Kevin Jones would have crumbled, like Paul would have been there to sweep him away. And win.
I mean, Paul put up a solid round, and Ricky put up a pretty solid performance. Yeah. There was more separation here than we've kind of seen. Kevin ended up winning by 4,
right?
And then I'm not sure. I don't have it pulled up, but there was separation between Paul and Ricky. It wasn't like a stroke or two.
Yeah.
It was 2. I think it was 3 or more.
Yeah.
But that's a little bit more separation than we have been seeing. And, we'll talk about this a little bit more because I think the FPO side shows something interesting with this, but I wonder if it was due to there being 2 courses.
Yeah, I mean, 2 courses definitely, I think, I don't know if it's 2 courses or the fact that one of the courses, which being the name of the second course, it was...
There's Fox Run and Brewster Ridge.
It was Fox Run, I think. That was where the more separation was, right?
I believe so, but I didn't look at that on the men's side. I looked at it on the FPO side.
I think on the men's side it was Fox Run. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's why it was. I don't think it's the fact that there was 2 courses. I think it was the fact that there was a course that had more separation. Right.
Interesting.
Because the first round I was like, everybody kind of came out the gate shooting really hot, and I was like, okay, this is kind of the trend of what we've seen. And then the second round it got really choppy, high, really good scores, and then some really bad scores from a lot of the better players. I think it was Ricky who didn't play so well in that second round, or somebody that was like, I was looking like, okay, some of the guys are coming out like really hot, and then I was like, oh, this guy's like 4 down through 12.
Well, the second round was when Ricky and Paul were on Chase Card. Was it the second round? I watched it. It was on Disc Golf Network, and I remembered Ricky and Paul. It was either the second or third round. Ricky and Paul were on the Chase Card, and Hannah McBeth was doing the commentating on like the field reporting.
Yeah.
And she pointed out that like the lead card, which at that time was James Conrad, Kevin Jones, Eagle by chance. Trying to think, there was 4 guys, and they were all more laid back, having a good time, relaxed, and they were shooting really well. And then you had Paul, Ricky, Jordan Castro, and I believe it was that Brooks Wells.
Yeah.
They were on the Chase Card, and they were all more serious, focused, and they weren't playing as well. And so Hannah mentioned that a few different times, saying like, hey, the lead card, James and Kevin especially were kind of tearing it up to start off. And she was like, they're just kind of out here having a good time. They're not that they're not taking it serious, but if you look at the Chase Card, it would almost like your expectations would be that it was reversed, where the right. Chase Card was the one that looked locked in and super focused, but their play wasn't matching up to that, whereas the lead card of Kevin Jones, James Conrad, I know those 2 were on it because they're both just fun figures in disc golf to where they always have a good time. And she mentioned that several times. So that's something interesting too. Just the vibe of the card, as Terry would always say.
Yeah.
What was like that. I don't want to park too long on GMC, but I do want to, while we're still talking about results, before I forget, bring up the dark horse pick, where I have now officially gone up 3-1 on you. My boy,
it's a dangerous lead.
Jamin Hume. I actually don't know what place he finished in, but he tied with Nick Carl, to give you kind of a glimpse of how he was playing. Nick Carl didn't play the best Nick Carl golf, but he had a few like close to 1,000 rated rounds. right?
Yeah, he had 2 over 1,000.
Two over 1,000. So, my dark horse pick played pretty decent, and yours was doing good.
He was in the lead until as far as leading your guy, until Keenan Johnson was his name. Till the last round, he kind of blew up a bit. But you know what? I was proud of your effort. You gave me 3 rounds of hope.
The only other storyline I wanted to pull out from the MPO side was, I'm going to title it this, and I think we can officially title this, McBeth's slump continues.
Yeah.
Now, why I say we can call it this is if there's only probably like a handful of players on tour that this is a slump for. Paul being one of them. Ricky, I think, would be one, and you could argue Eagle would be one. But Paul has now went 10th place at D-Glow, 5th place at... Actually, where was 5th place at? Right after D-Glow. Not sure. 5th place, and then went second place.
Or no, that was D-Glow.
D-Glow is Great Lakes.
Yeah.
10th there, 5th, and then second place at Ledgestone, and now... Oh, then it was 10th. It was 5th at...
Ottawa?
I don't know. I know the numbers I have written down are correct, but what the heck tournaments? Why didn't I write those? He went 10th, 5th, 2nd. 4 tournaments.
Fair enough.
At all Pro Tour events. So, for a normal player at a Pro Tour to go 10th, 5th, 2nd, that's a great stretch.
Right.
For Paul, not so much.
Yeah, I mean, the 10th and the 5th are really, second place, if it were 4 second places, that'd be one thing, but it was like the 10th and the 5th. Adding on to the last 2 second places, he's just not now. At least past 2 second places, he hasn't even really been in the position he'd like to be. He gave one away a while back. That was Ottawa,
and that's what he came in 5th.
Right. So he
gave
Ottawa away. That one was surprising because he was in winning position. He had a couple strokes.
That's why I didn't think it was 5th, but it was because Idlewild,
he blew up.
He lost by 5, but going into even 17, he had a chance.
Yeah,
which is shocking. But yeah, he lost by 5 at Idlewild, which that's his 5th place. So 10th was Great Lakes Open, 5th Idlewild, 2nd Ledgestone, 2nd Green Mountain.
Yeah,
like I said, any other player. This is a great stretch. They're playing great.
Yeah. And the thing is, too, if he wins at MVP, then I wouldn't have even considered that stretch a slump, really.
So the thing is...
If he loses again, then...
Well, here's the weird thing about Paul, is looking at this, I still consider him the best player in the world because of the fact that currently, obviously all time, that's pretty clear. But currently, I still consider him the best in the world right now because... He's not losing to the same person over and over.
Right. It's not like the same person is beating him every time.
It's not like when...
Nobody's had a better stretch
than
he has.
Yeah. It's not like Ricky is beat him both back-to-back weeks. Ricky beat him at Ledgestone. Now we have Kevin here. He... Realistically, if he cared about what place he was finishing, he would have come in 2nd at Idlewild.
Yeah.
But he was pushing for the 1st and once first. So Eagle beat him there. And then 10th place at D-Glow. He just played bad.
Yeah, I mean, he's still... the most consistent.
Yeah, but it is interesting to see him go 4 Pro Tour events in a row without a win now.
We're getting, in those 4 events, have we had different winners at each one?
Let's look. D-Glow was Eagle. Eagle went back-to-back, D-Glow and Idlewild.
But then we had
Ricky at Ledgestone and Kevin. So Eagle,
so
Ricky,
we
Kevin.
Get Paul in the mix too. It's looking good for Parity on the leaderboard in disc golf right now. I think we're maybe starting to settle into that sweet spot of because I think it's important that disc golf has different people winning a lot and a lot of people in contention. And I think right now we're at a spot where there's about 5 people in there. I would say Paul, Ricky, Eagle, Kevin, and then you throw in a 5th of a mix of people probably. Does that sound about right to you?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's good. I'd like to see that number. That's not a bad thing for disc golf because it makes new people, they don't have too many people to worry about. They know who are the guys of the sport. And that's not a bad thing. I'd like to see that number be 10. I think that's a sweet spot. There's 10 guys that are the guys. And every once in a while, somebody else will sneak in there and win. But there's 10 guys that are the guys that are winning. I think that's a good place for disc golf to grow and become popular and have its guys, Because that's how that's how it is on the PGA Tour. I mean, you've got your guys.
Golf though was dying. No one cared about golf until you had Tiger back and being competitive.
Right.
So is parity really actually a good thing for a sport?
Tiger, I don't think Tiger's. It's tough to say whether it was Tiger's dominance. I think that has a lot to do with it, but I think the way that Tiger played the game was different too, and I think that attributes a lot to that. The way he played with a certain kind of passion and finesse, and just he just attacked the game differently than anybody else did at that time. He made it exciting to watch. That's why people like Tiger. Nowadays,
I'm saying recently when Tiger, 2018 Tiger comeback.
Golf's excitement, yes, the ratings
golf was dead as a sport.
That's not true.
The ratings and everything was trash.
They weren't trash.
Yes, they were. Compared to normal ratings in golf, 3-4 years ago, prior to the Tiger return, everyone was saying as soon as Tiger came back, how the ratings,
Well, the ratings are higher, but I'm saying I don't think they were yes, golf with Tiger on TV is always higher ratings, but I wouldn't say it was trash. What are you calling trash? It still gets a lot of viewers.
I don't know what the exact numbers were.
They're still getting tons of revenue and have great television network deals.
Revenue, yes. Deals, yes. Viewers, no.
You have to have viewers to get those deals.
Not necessarily. When you have a long history, you can be like, oh, well, it was a down year, but the FedEx Cup isn't going to pull their funding after 1 or 2 down years.
I don't know
I'm just saying,
talking about.
Tons of, all I'm saying is the news articles, I don't follow golf super closely, but the news articles I saw, the headings were, when Tiger returned, how he saved the viewership of golf because their ratings were so bad beforehand and golf was on this decline, basically in a downward death spiral.
Golf has been on a downward spiral, but it's not, I wouldn't call it a spiral. I'd call it more of a slow slide because it's not as popular with the youth anymore because it's not accessible, and that's where disc golf thrives. But I don't know that it's a downward spiral. What I'm saying
is when they had the parity without one guy.
Okay, but my point is, I'm trying to get to here, is that this era of golf, the only thing, without Tiger, the only thing that makes it excitement is it has a young core. Okay, so we had Rory, Dustin Johnson, Ricky Fowler, all those guys came in while Tiger was gone, and they're the ones that kept it afloat. And Jordan Spieth, Justin Thomas, those guys were in there too. That was without having that one guy. If you don't have that one guy dominating like Tiger, you have to have a young core to keep it exciting. So I don't know which model's better for the sport. I don't know if Paul winning everything's better.
I think the young model helps the sport grow, but the Paul winning's more marketable. If that makes any sense. Or even
for him.
No. For outside sponsors, because you want to look at where you can put your money, right? And you can put your money where A, views are, and B, if Nike, would they rather sponsor a player or would they rather sponsor a tournament? Right now, I think they'd rather sponsor a player because what tournaments are you going to sponsor? This year, obviously, the Pro Tour is the choice, but in the future, it's there's 2 Elite Series tours, plus there's majors, plus there's this, plus there's... Yeah. Or I could just sponsor one player, and wherever he goes, he's wearing my brand. But one thing also to bring up that I think goes not against parity per se, but is the McBeth bump that we've seen in views when it comes to Jomez, Central Coast, Gatekeeper, whoever. Go look at their views on their channel. Ones that have Paul's name in the title have more views.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
So more people are watching when Paul's playing.
I think too, the Paul dominance might just look different from now on than it used to. It used to be in disc golf, if Paul McBeth was on a dominant stretch, he literally was winning everything. When Tiger Woods was on a dominant stretch, he wasn't winning everything. He won if you win 5 or 6 times on the PGA Tour in a year, you had an unreal season. If you win more than one major, crazy season. So in disc golf, it might just mean, Paul's always in the top 5 every time, and he comes away with 5 or 6 tour victories each year, and that's what dominance looks like.
Well, maybe too, maybe my argument against parity doesn't make as much sense because as long as Paul's pushing the top, even if he's not always winning, that might be the best case scenario for the sport.
Well,
where you still have the biggest name, because Tiger coming back, right, in golf was a big deal regardless of if he was competing or not, because his name. So Paul's created the name for himself to the point where he's the most marketable. We can talk all you want about how good Ricky, Eagle, those players are compared to Paul, because right now they're pretty darn close. When rubber meets the road, James Conrad Conrad has had a little bit of an off year, but even like Simon, Eagle, Paul, Ricky, when rubber meets the road, we're talking a few strokes here and there, and it could swing anyway. Right. You know, if you're a betting man, you're not feeling as good this year as you are in 2015 betting on Paul.
Yeah.
But when the rubber meets the road in the opposite direction, when it comes to marketing, no one touches Paul. When it comes to marketing, if I'm a company and I want to sell a disc, and if manufacturer sponsorships didn't exist, I'm not advocating for that. I'm just saying. And I'm a company and I can pick one player to put their name on a disc to sell it, I'm going Paul every time.
Yeah.
Because, you can look at sales numbers on Infinite's top 20 or anything like that.
Well, just
Paul's
the ability,
name's going to move
just
the
the
disc.
ability to put 5-time world champion on a disc.
It's not, yeah.
It sells itself a bit.
Well, I don't know if necessarily the 5-time world champion.
To the casual fan, though, who just sees this guy has more world championships than anybody else, and it's on a disc, and he throws it.
I might look him up, but I'm not buying it because of that. It's not necessarily.
If I'm new into disc golf, I might.
Well, I'm not. I never bought a T-Bird because I had some Ken Climo 12-time world champ. I looked up Ken Climo.
That's where you and I are different.
I looked up Ken Climo to find out who the heck he was, but I never bought a disc because his name was on it. But I'm saying Paul's 5-time world championships have been documented, and the way he's carried himself and pushed the sport is what's selling the disc more than just the little 5-time thing on it. To where if you put a disc with just McBeth and big letters on it, like the Tour Series Luna, you could sell the heck out of those. All I'm saying is having Paul current state of disc golf, having Paul on a lead card or whatever, whether he wins or not, and almost possibly we could talk about whether he doesn't win. That could be the best case scenario. Having Paul attract viewers to see a Kevin Jones win GMC and open people's eyes to other players. Maybe that's what's best for the sport as a whole, because now there might be from this weekend watching Paul players tune in, newer players, discover Paul, tune in to watch Paul play, see Kevin Jones tear up. They are now Kevin Jones fans, or maybe they're now Eagle fans from 2 weeks ago. That is where parity could be good for the sport. I just talked myself out of my own thinking, but
sure did.
I think if Paul's on the lead card is the key because that draws the viewers in.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Regardless, onto the FPO side, after all that, we had Paige Pierce taking it down by 2 over Haley King, and then we had Katrina Allen and Sarah Hokum tie for 3rd, which I want to point out before we talk about anything. My top 3 was technically right, because I had Paige Pierce.
Mine was too, wasn't it? Yeah.
We might have both been right.
I think we both were right, because
I had Paige, Katrina, and Sarah. And
I think I had Haley King and Kat and Paige, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Looky there. I just wanted to point that out because I wasn't proud of it, but I was like, oh, little loophole. Yeah. Tie for 3rd. We don't talk a lot about ratings on this show. We try to avoid it.
I feel like we do.
Well, we end up talking about it because
we just say we don't.
It's so emphasized in the sport. But what I was going to say is when we go through, we didn't just say what Kevin Jones averaged or anything like that.
No,
but
hold our tongue.
When it comes to Paige Pierce at this tournament, I think you have to at least acknowledge this. She popped off 2 1030-plus rated rounds, which I don't want to say it's never been done on the FPO side, but it is not done very frequently to have a FPO player shoot 2 over a 4-round tournament, 2 1030-plus rated rounds, one of them being 1037, almost 1040. Crazy good golf from Paige. Haley King was right up in there. And the thing I want to talk about that's interesting on the FPO side here is if this tournament's only at Brewster Ridge, Haley King, based on the play, would have won. If this was 4 rounds, she would have won average by 8 strokes. Because she went, crap. I had it written down. Anyway, she beat Paige by 2 strokes each time.
Yeah.
I think Paige went 60, 61 or something like that.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing about the multi-course format that I like it. I think it's interesting because it's unique to disc golf, and I don't mind it. But it's interesting because it kind of hurts parity because having different courses makes the better overall player usually come out on top. Whereas if, like you said, if it all was at Brewster Ridge, maybe Haley King wins. So I think if you play at the same course for all the rounds, then throughout the tour you might see more random winners because it might just be that a course tailors to somebody's game really well. But when you add in multiple courses, it kind of rounds it out so that the best overall game ends up winning, which is probably more fair.
That's what I was going to say. Is Fox Run, Paige would have ran away with it a little bit.
Yeah.
That's where she went 10-30 both rounds at Fox Run.
Yeah.
But so I guess what's at the end of the day better for the sport? The parity of, a Haley King might be able to win if it was only at Brewster Ridge, or it being challenging with two different courses to where the best player that weekend overall stands out.
Yeah, it's tough because it's very untraditional, the multi-course thing. I mean, it's a disc golf thing, and it's unique to disc golf, but it's one of those things that's unique to disc golf that I don't mind. As long as both the courses are up to standard, and I don't feel like, wow, one of these courses is awesome, and the other course is like not that great. If both of the courses are up to standard, then I think it's cool to have variety. I definitely only really like it in a 4-round format, or I guess a 2-round if it was like an A tier or something, not a tour event. But I definitely don't want to see a 3-round, go to one course, go to a different one, then come back to the first one. I don't like that. I want to see, even rounds at each course. But it gets unique to disc golf, and I think that's cool. It's definitely, it definitely has an effect on scores. It rounds out things a bit. But I'm a fan of it. I'm a fan.
I don't mind it in a scenario like this weekend where the players had weeks of preparation.
Right.
Some were quarantined up there for 2 weeks.
We've talked about not being able to practice it as easily,
In this situation, or a situation like this where there's a 2-week or more break between major events, so like pro tours, or if there was a national tour and then a pro tour, or a major and then a pro tour, something like that, I don't mind the 2 courses. Where I think 2 courses comes into being an issue is like the Idlewild to Ledgestone back-to-back, to where there's only realistically 2 to 3 days of practice. Because if there's 2 courses, it's going to be a 4-round event.
Right.
I mean, at least in my head. On the Pro Tour, that seems to be, if there's 1 course, 3 rounds. If there's 2 courses, 4 rounds. Yeah. That seems to be what's been the standard up to this point. But one thing I think would be cool to see in disc golf is, if there's only 1 course that's up to the standard, but it's going to be a 4-round event, is like what the USDGC has done. And obviously this is a golf idea, but changing the pin locations. To where you can have 2 courses in one, sort of, to where the players might only have to learn, or at least they only have to practice 1 course, but they might be challenged with 2 different formats, to where 1 course might just favor a little bit to the forehand and the other course favors to the backhand, so the most overall well-rounded player wins that weekend.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea. It's different, obviously a lot different in ball golf because, obviously it's easier to change the pins without drastic change to
all they're changing is like the chip up where you want to hit on the green.
Well, yeah, it changes okay, so maybe now this pin's at the bottom of a slope that you want to play up onto, or maybe now it's hugging a bunker and you don't have as much green to work with. There's a lot of strategy to it, and they can also, with a few feet, make a pin infinitely easier or harder based on, usually they'll make moving day pins super easy. They want guys to score, and then the final day pins are usually tough. They want a chance for guys to collapse and guys to be heroes. Disc golf, obviously there's a lot of courses these days. We've just played one this morning, Venhorst, that has 2 different pin locations, completely different course on a lot of those holes. Really changes it.
I guess that's true, because in disc golf it's changing the fairway you're taking.
Yeah, it's changing the fairway usually, not changing where you're landing on the green, So it's a lot different. The concept is a lot different in disc golf, but I don't necessarily mind it. We've played college tournaments at Clemson where we've played 2 different layouts. I
feel like USDGC has done it with somewhat success. Their course design last year could be questioned and was questioned. But at least as far as the 2 pins go,
I don't mind subtle pin changes to where at USDGC, I like the idea of okay, there's water near a pin, so one day it's further away from the water, you can really attack it, and the next day you kind of have to play out towards the open area, and maybe you're scared of your putt, it's closer to the water.
But it's not really changing your tee shot.
It's not changing a whole lot. It's just subtle changes. Yeah. I don't mind that. At USDGC, I think they've done it where they've changed hole 1. The first day they would play it straight alley, and then they would go to the new forehand raised basket, which I do not like, by the way. Love the old pin.
Yeah.
But that's a complete hole change, though.
Yes. Well, but every single hole, at least to my knowledge, had an A and a B pin, and it would go like A pins, B pins, A pins mixed or something like that.
It's definitely something to be experimented with, and like it's gonna change how the feel, like whether it's just changing the landing area a little bit or if it's changing the entire hole. That's gonna change course to course. In the woods, you're typically gonna get an entire hole looking completely different when you change the pin location. In open courses, it might be a little bit more subtle, like, oh, let's move it a little bit closer to the OB flags, or like at the USDGC, let's move it further away from the mozzarella stick wooden pole things. Like it's an interesting thing to explore, but I think it's a nuance that probably should be looked into more.
Yeah, I think at least on,
because you're going to change courses completely, you might as well.
Well, I think at least for majors, it should be looked into, because of the fact that like a major needs to be 4 rounds or more.
Not more.
Sorry, 4 rounds.
Yeah, whoa. Let's not go back to the worlds where it was 7 rounds. That was dumb.
It needs to be 4 rounds. It doesn't need, which I don't know if there is majors that are 3 rounds. But if it's 4 rounds and you only have one high quality course in the area, that's going to get boring for the viewer, for the player.
Yeah, if the pins are the same.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, sorry. If the pins are the same. If you're only playing the exact same course 4 rounds in a row.
Yeah.
So that's where I think a pin change comes in. If it's like a Pro Tour and it's 3 rounds, like Idlewild, it's not fine, you don't really have to change that much. Yeah. But I don't know. It's something to look into kind of as the sport progresses. But one thing that is coming up that is always an exciting time of year is the MVP Open. That is coming up this weekend. Yeah, this weekend. So we're just going to predict our top 3 on both sides. I don't really know. We've already talked about the storyline of the Volunteers. I don't really think there's any other storyline really coming into this much.
Not that I can think of.
I am going to change my top 3 because...
You always change them as you're like ready to
because... I'll just go ahead with mine, because 3rd place I had Simon Lizotte, but then I just remembered
he doesn't like to win.
No.
He doesn't care
Well, that's why I put him in 3rd. No, I remembered his forehand. He's hurt. Like something with his elbow is hurt to where he can't really throw a forehand. I forget exactly what the injury is, but because of that, I am going with... We'll go with Kevin Jones. We'll go Ricky Wysocki winning, going first place. Paul McBeth, 2nd place. Kevin Jones coming off the hot streak, 3rd place.
All right. I've got the same 3 people, but in a different order. I'm going to give Kevin Jones back-to-back wins. Staying up north, just coming off of a win. He's been, because the thing is, it's not like he just came out and won and like hasn't been around all season. He's been there all year round.
Yeah.
So like you get a win like that, those can make you. They can make your season, because now you're like, all right, I can win. I know how to win now. There's a lot of guys on tour who do not know how to win. They know they're good at disc golf, and they might be better than a lot of guys that do win, but they just don't know how to win. Kevin Jones does not know how to win. So I'm going to give him another win and just see what happens. I'm going to go with Ricky in 2nd and Paul in 3rd.
Interesting. Paul in 3rd.
Yeah, well, I'm done picking Paul. He's making me look dumb. So, like, please go ahead and prove me wrong. But I'm still rooting for you.
On the FPO side, I have Paige taking it down. I feel like I've picked Paige every single week, but the thing is, you're going to look a lot smarter if you pick Paige to win every week than if you pick someone else. So I'm going with Paige for the win, and then I feel like for some reason on the FPO side, it plays a little bit to a 4-handers.
You say this every week, and you pick Sarah Hokum every time, and it never pans out. Well, I guess it did last week. She did tie for 3rd.
I think it's 2 weeks in a row it's panned out that she's been in the top 3.
Has it?
Idlewild, and then I don't know if I picked her at Ledgestone. I don't know, but it has panned out.
I was going to take her too, to be honest.
I'm going Paige, Sarah Hokum 2nd, and Haley King 3rd, because Haley King also has a very elite sidearm. This is actually one of the first times I haven't picked Katrina Allen in the top 3, and the only reason for that was I don't think she's going to finish top 3. I don't really know.
Nice.
I don't really have a solid reason.
Expert analysis.
I don't really have a solid reason. I just went with the forehands of Sarah Hokum and Haley King.
I'm going to be a rebel and knock Paige Pierce out of my top 3.
Out of your top 3 completely?
Yeah.
All right.
I'm going to have Haley King the win, Sarah Hokum in 2nd, and Katrina Allen in 3rd.
Interesting.
I think she won this past week. She might be a little bit complacent, kind of sitting on that win. I think Haley King has a dirty forehand.
She does. She does.
She's got a dirty forehand. This is her time to win. She needs to take advantage of it. And I think that's why Sarah Hokum comes in second. I agree with that point, even though I make fun of it. And then I'm gonna say Katrina Allen somehow edges out Paige. I'm gonna say, honestly, new prediction: Katrina Allen and Paige Pierce tie for third.
Oh, so you're picking 4 people.
It's higher. It's even worse.
I'm
odds.
not gonna pick 4 people,
Yeah,
but
I'll
let
odds.
you pick 4.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you've heard it here.
If that comes true.
If that comes true, we're going to take Trevor to Las Vegas.
Yeah, I'm going to the Powerball immediately.
Now, the final one is the dark horse pick. So, as we stated at the beginning of the show, top of the hour, I'm up 3-1 now. I'm going to let Trevor announce his dark horse pick first because mine is directly related to his.
All right. So, I found a gem here. I've got Samuel Streeter from Charlton, Massachusetts. So, he's up there. I picked him because he just had a massive ratings bump, plus 18, so he'd been on a hot streak. He's got 18 career wins and 51 career events. It's pretty darn good.
That's really good.
He's a killer, and he just won the GMC AM side last week, so he's a killer.
So this is the reason that I'm picking the player I'm picking Casey Gonta, because remember the dark horse pick. It started as someone who we expect to play way better than a rating and turned into you pick a random player below 980, I pick a random player below 980, and who can beat the other. And Casey Gonta last weekend at the GMC AM side tied for the win and lost in a playoff
to Samuel Streeter.
So, therefore, I'm saying Casey gets his revenge on Sam this weekend. And so I'm going with Casey. Yeah. So I'm going with Casey on that one. How it'll play out,
very intriguing.
Only time will tell. All right, so let's get into I was going to say the meat of the podcast, but here we are 32 minutes in, just getting to the topic that's not about tournaments. I also just accidentally licked the foam cover of my microphone, which was a very weird experience, and I don't recommend ever doing that. Oh, gosh. It just tasted weird. All right, so when it comes to PDGA rules, I have seen some confusion on the interwebs on multiple places. Facebook, YouTube comments, Discord. And I want to talk about it. It's been going on for a few weeks. And so basically there's just confusion on a few rules in particular and their implementation into the game / being called in the game. So the first one is probably no surprise to anyone listening, which is excessive time.
Yes.
So we've heard a lot of complaints this year about Nico. We've heard some previously about Philo. And there was another player that's like notorious for it. It just slipped my mind. But Nico and Philo, we've heard them. Nico big this year. Philo in the past we've heard somewhat about. And then this past weekend we had some comments going back and forth on Gatekeeper Media's coverage where a viewer called out Eagle for excessive time. And then Eagle responded with, your time does not begin until you step up to your lie, which if you've been in disc golf long enough, you have heard that.
That's what I've always understood is like when you address your lie, you have 30 seconds. So like you'd walk up to your mini and like you get in your stance for your putt, and now you have 30 seconds to release that putt, in which is plenty of time. That's what I've always believed, but
it's not necessarily wrong.
Yeah.
It's just not also necessarily right.
It's very vague.
Yeah. So this is what Rule 802.03a states this. A player has taken excessive time if they are present and have not thrown within 30 seconds after the previous player has thrown, and they have had a reasonable amount of time to arrive at and determine their lie, and they are next in the throwing order, and the playing area is clear and free of distractions.
All right. So the key word there is reasonable.
Exactly.
So reasonable is PDGA's little secret buzzword there that word can be interpreted however the player wants it to be interpreted. Because the PDGA understands, and what I understand, this is a PGA, this is a ball golf thing too, is like how much time you take to throw your shot is kind of up to you. It's really, there's never going to be a shot clock. Okay, so it's about just not being dumb about it.
Here's my thing is,
I think you're entitled to be a slow player if you want to be a slow player, and guys are going to know you as a slow player, and you're just going to have to exist on tour.
Well, so when you read this rule, you interpreted it as the player throwing the disc is the one to determine the reasonable amount, correct?
Yes.
So when I read it as the player who would be calling you on it, which would be your card mates, is the one to determine a reasonable amount.
I mean, maybe it can go either way, to be honest.
It's very vague.
In any case, I'm thinking the PDGA is writing that rule like, there's no time limit really. Just like, I don't even know why they write. I mean, I guess they write 30 seconds. They had to write something, but like, I don't think that needs to be like a thing. Like, nobody needs to be getting called on 30 seconds unless it's something outrageous. Like from what I've seen of like the slow players, like, yeah, they're taking their time, but it's about just being professional and respectful to your card mates, I think, at the end of the day. Like, there's always going to be guys that are slower. There's guys on the PGA Tour that are notorious for being slower players, but they kind of just are. You kind of just got to be patient.
See, that's where... So I disagree with you on a certain... So I think there's two types of slow players. There's slow addressing their lie players, like slow determining what shot to throw when they're scrambling type of a player.
Yeah.
And then there's just slow players. So like there's players who
step up to their lie and then they're
step up to their lie and then they're slow. Like they pump 50 times or they line up a shot like this and those are the players that I think this rule should be called on.
Okay, so if that's the case, then they need to change the ruling to when your right or left foot like gets behind the mini or your disc to where you are now like lined up to throw. That's when the time starts.
Yes. So what everyone thought the rule stated as of right now.
Right. I think PDGA just wishes they didn't. Like, they just are hoping that people are just sensible and don't have to.
Well, because this was brought up in reference to this situation that basically I wrote out a little description of it. Basically, Eagle approaches his lie, then pulls out a rangefinder.
Yeah, well, there's another problem.
Oh gosh, marks checks out how far away he is from the basket, then puts the rangefinder back into his bag, then picks out his disc, and then grabs his whale sack, dries his hand off, and then approaches his lie. Once he approached his lie, he didn't take an excessive time.
Okay, well, here's the issue with that is the rangefinders.
Well, in reference to time or in reference to rangefinders in general?
Both.
Okay,
so the rangefinder is a part of that time, and it's becoming more popular, and it's an issue.
Why?
Everybody is all excited about this disc golf rangefinder craze.
See, I don't know if I'm like what is about to come out of your mouth because I just got my Bushnell disc golf rangefinder.
Here's the thing, Hunter. You're in luck because you're not on the Pro Tour.
That's valid.
Okay,
but I will be using it at my local C tiers.
And that's fine. If you go to your local golf club, you're going to see guys using rangefinders, and that's great. Like, they can do that. But at the highest level, using a rangefinder, nobody can argue that using a rangefinder is not a competitive advantage, okay? So you say, well, everybody can use it, so what's wrong with that? Well, disc golf is too easy for the pros. They're shooting like 14 down like every other round. Okay, that's been a pretty common consensus amongst disc golf fans that disc golf needs to find ways to make the game more difficult. So why encourage the use of rangefinders? It makes the game easier. That's backwards progress. Now, is it a good thing? Is it fine that these rangefinders exist to scout out courses in your practice rounds beforehand? Absolutely. That's perfectly fine. On the PGA Tour, for example, the players and caddies, it'd be the caddies, but in this case, it'd probably be the players because, we're not there yet. The caddies will go out to the course during the practice rounds or whatever. They will go to all the places that they want their guy to land or they want to, anywhere they need to know a distance. Like they say, okay, I want to know how far off the tee that water is, or I want to know if my guy lands in position A, he has this far to the front of the green, this far to the back. And they shoot all those distances and they write them down in their caddy book. Okay, studying the course should be more is a big part of the game of golf that is kind of thrown out the wayside, and it's a very fascinating part of golf. And I think disc golf like that is something that we don't necessarily see as much or hear as much about. And that's like the whole rangefinder thing. That's where it needs to be incorporated, not during the round. Like, I don't need to see like Kevin Jones pulling out a rangefinder to shoot his upshot. Like, these guys are the best disc golfers in the world. He shouldn't have to shoot a 200-foot upshot to know it's 200 feet.
I mean,
he was plenty good before the rangefinder exists, was he not? Like, did Paul McBeth not win 5 world titles without a rangefinder?
I don't think Paul will ever use a rangefinder. I think...
And here's the other thing.
I think part of it is a player who where I like the rangefinder, right, is a player on tour who maybe like I think it could help players, which maybe this is why you don't like it, but I think it can help those players who like walk up to a tee with like 3 discs or whatever, or like step up to a shot and they're like, man, is this a mid or is it a putter? What do I throw?
That should be done during practice rounds. That's what I'm arguing. I'm saying
I don't disagree with you. I just don't think it's a...
I'm saying players will separate themselves by their preparation.
Okay.
The more you prepare and take notes on the course, the better you'll do. And being able to have a rangefinder out on the course.
I don't think that changes with I don't think that's a valid argument against a rangefinder, because that's just a valid argument, period, whether you have a rangefinder or don't.
Yeah, but I'm saying the rangefinder, at the very core of this argument, the rangefinder is giving a disc golfer a competitive advantage when they are already making the courses look silly.
Yes.
So we do not, that's backwards progress. And for anybody else who's not a touring professional, like if you're just out there playing casual round, that's not a problem.
So when it comes to competitive advantages then, right?
Yeah.
The only other one I've ever heard that term used for is headphones.
Yeah, I don't.
Where do you stand on that?
I don't care about headphones.
So why don't you care about headphones?
Because a rangefinder...
Does that not make the game easier?
Well, here's the thing. A rangefinder is giving you an exact distance. I think the rangefinder is not, in disc golf at least, I don't think disc golf is not as precise of a distance sport as ball golf. Ball golf like can be a game of inches, and disc golf can be as far as like left and right hitting a tree, but as far as like 200 feet to the basket, then I don't think that's where it's useful. I think it's most useful in shooting where how far away a tree is. Do I push past this tree or go inside of it? Or how far is that Mando, or how far is that water hazard? Where do I need to lay up to this water? I think that's where it becomes more useful. Or maybe like if it's going to the pin, like can I clear this OB to get to the pin? But headphones, first of all, they're not, unless somebody's in your ear, there's nobody telling you, this much to the pin. The problem with headphones, is it's a bit unprofessional in my opinion. It kind of, I don't know, it's a bit weird to me. And I understand why it's used. Like, I'm sure it calms certain players down. Like, it helps them, like, stay in their head and like in their game or whatnot. It's not really popular. Like Kevin Jones, I'm pretty sure he was a headphone guy, and I'm pretty sure he just won that tournament without using headphones. Barry Schultz used them for a long time. I just filmed Barry Schultz though, and he has one headphone in, one out. Like, he's very much talkative on the course. Like, it's not like he's locked into that music. I don't see it. It doesn't bother me. It's a bit gimmicky and unprofessional looking in my opinion, but it's not mainstream enough for me to care. I don't think it's a trend that's gonna remain a thing. So that's why the headphone thing is bothering me.
Yeah, I can see that. The headphones, though, the competitive advantage side of the headphones don't bother me at all, which I think is the same reason that the rangefinder doesn't bother me, because of the point that, let's say that, to me, I play best when I have a song in my head. Now, I never use headphones because of part B that I'm about to talk about, but I play best when I can get in a rhythm. So if I can get a song in my head and I'm
when I practice,
into a rhythm,
I listen to music when I practice.
And if I can get in a rhythm where I'm more thinking about the song and whatever else and not about my game, that's when I've had my best rounds. Why I don't wear headphones and why I don't like the headphones is because it can distract and pull you away from your card and your responsibility to your card.
Right. That's the unprofessionalism, I think.
Yeah. If there is a ruling call and you happen to have both headphones in, you forgot to take one off the tee, you might not hear that, hey, you're needed for this. Or if you're walking up in front of someone and they're throwing and they say, hey, I'm out, you might not hear them for that. Yeah. That's where I think headphones, just for pace of play and the good of the game, should go away for that part. But as far as the competitive advantage, when it comes to competitive advantage, everyone can bring headphones to the course. Everyone can bring a rangefinder to the course.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. My argument isn't really the competitive advantage in that sense, one player over another. It's all the players versus the course. That the courses are already struggling to keep up with how good players are right now. Let's not give them anything to make it easier for them. We should be going in the other direction.
Yeah, but to me, the answer to that, the answer to let's go in the other direction or whatever, isn't taking away rangefinders. It's making the courses harder.
But why would we make it? Why would we give them something that helps them?
What is the rangefinder? Rangefinder, what might be a stroke here and a stroke there?
But why give it to them?
I mean,
why is it necessary? Is my thing.
It's not necessarily necessary, but I think it's helping. I think to me, a rangefinder, when I see a pro taking time and like shooting a thing, like shooting the shot, lining up, taking their time.
But why can't they be looking at
the note?
Why can't they be taking a look at the notes they just took, or talking to their caddy that took the notes for them?
Caddies, we're not there yet. Money wise,
we need to be.
Well, money wise, we're not there yet.
I bet you
until there's a corporate sponsor, we're not going to be there.
Well, I bet you every like popular pro could 100% find some guy that wanted to do that for them for free.
Yeah, but so right now, if there was a caddy on the road, it would have to be funded by the manufacturer as like a driver / caddy / tour manager. That's the position the person would have to fill. Because who's going to pay like...
I'm saying it'd be like a one-off thing.
Yeah, but who wants a one-off? Like if I'm going on the road... I want a caddy.
I mean, if some guy comes up to me with a notebook full of every single distance on that course and every bit of local know-how on that course, and I'm playing a practice round for the first time,
but I don't trust him. I don't trust him to know my game, and that's the biggest thing of a caddy is like I need you to know not what's best from the course.
Yeah, but he might know objective things about the course.
Yeah, like okay, don't miss right. But what if like
that's fine. That's good information though.
So he might be like, hey, well, don't miss right. So what I would want a caddy to say is like, hey, I know you're going to throw the forehand because that's your best shot here, but when you do it, make sure you're throwing this disc that's going to flip up because of blah, 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 blah.
I mean,
versus, well, don't miss right.
You'd love that detail, but I wouldn't mind a guy being like, oh, by the way, there's a massive cliff drop-off behind the basket that you can't see from up here.
Pros on the course will know that with one practice round. There's no, like, local knowledge of a course. 98% of pros have played enough disc golf that they're going to play a course and figure that out in 1 or 2 rounds. That's not what a caddy is good for to me. To disc golfers. A caddy is good for knowing a player's bag and a player's game so much that they can help them adjust on the fly and have someone to bounce ideas off of that the player themselves trusts the caddy to know. A random guy, no. I don't think that's really helpful. And that's where, to me, when we don't have a caddy in a sport, and we're not getting caddies soon. We until a corporate sponsor comes in to where a player can afford a caddy themselves, or if Discraft randomly hires a driver and a caddy for a player like Paul or Yuli or someone like that. But the
problem is, I don't know how many disc golfers would want a caddy.
I think a lot would. If it was a caddy that was on the road with them and
how many times do you think if Paul has a caddy, even if he knows his game really well, somebody like you or I who know his game to a certain degree, like how many times is Paul really gonna like hear what that caddy says and be like, you're right, I'm gonna go with what
you or I
said.
Zero. Tompkins multiple times around.
Really?
He would literally. Tompkins was Paul's caddy at pretty much. Tompkins knew Paul's game and knows, maybe not anymore because he hasn't caddied for him a while, but knew his game so well that he probably knew it as good as Paul. So there were certain shots that I literally saw Paul pull a disc out. Tompkins say, dude, I think you should do this. And Paul go back to the bag and switch. Or Paul bring 2 discs to Tompkins and be like, are you thinking this or this? And Tompkins say, I think this one.
That surprises me.
Well, it's in the heat of the moment. You know, sometimes your emotions, you're just like, I just want to throw. And if you had someone just be like, what should I throw, man? I don't know. Nothing's working. What are you thinking? Mm-hmm. That can just be a change in mindset. But you need someone you trust. That's why if you or I caddied for Paul right now, yeah, I know Paul's game. And I know, like, discs he could throw and what shots. But because I haven't given Paul advice to where Paul's taking it in a major or anything, there's no back history that has to be built up with a caddy. So,
yeah.
He would take our opinions with a grain of salt, and I'd be like, I think it's an Avenger SS. And he'd be like, okay, forehand Crystal Raptor, because, why would I listen to Hunter? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Versus Tompkins, who has told him multiple times, and Paul's seen, hey, I think Tompkins is right about this. That type of a caddy who's built up over years is invaluable. Until disc golf gets there, I think that the rangefinder kind of serves as a caddy to a certain degree, or something like that. Where, yeah, it might be a competitive advantage, but if Eagle's like, man, I really don't know. I don't know what to throw here. Boom, rangefinder. I
just don't understand.
300
We've
feet.
talked on this podcast so many times about how disc golf is too easy for the pros, and you're going to give them something to make it easier. I just don't.
Well, because I don't think that. So giving caddies would make the sport easier. You think that's the wrong move for disc golf?
But I think it's a fair way to do it. Like
How
there's a
rangefinder's
reason.
Not fair.
Because you're using a robot to assist yourself. There's a reason they're not allowed on the PGA Tour, because you're giving yourself electronic technology assistance.
Once a caddy
it's
is
literally
in the game,
a training aid.
Once a caddy is in the game, then I will agree with getting rid of that, because there's someone to do that.
But at the
work.
very core of the argument, why do you want the sport to be easier for them?
I don't.
But you do. You're giving them something to make it easier.
No, because I don't think that this. I don't think.
Do rangefinders make it easier for them? Yes or no? Yes.
But it doesn't make the sport easier.
Yes, it does.
No, it makes their decision making easier.
Which makes the sport easier.
It doesn't change how hard the course is. That is the issue.
Yes, it does.
No, it doesn't. When it comes to how...
Yes, it does. Knowing the distances to the exact number makes a course easier. How could you possibly say that it doesn't?
No, it doesn't make...
If you know how far that water is, it just made it easier to say, I'm going to lay up instead of trying to go for it because I thought it was further than it actually is.
It makes how a player plays change, but it doesn't make the course easier.
That's garbage. That's so garbage.
No, what I'm saying is I don't think that getting rid of rangefinders or stuff like that is the solutions we need in changing
It's not
the course.
the ultimate solution. I think it's a step in the wrong. I think it's a step in the wrong direction.
See, so to me, I think it's a step
at the pro level. I'm not
think it's a
against
step in the right
rangefinders.
direction because it helps players think through more and treat to me when a player is using a rangefinder. And they're in a mindset of a golf mindset of a disc golf, taking it serious.
They already do take it seriously.
They take it serious, but I'm saying thinking through their options, consulting their own head as a caddy.
But they're already doing that.
To a certain degree, yes, but I think this takes it a step farther and helps get the sport in that direction. Gets it closer to caddies.
I'm never agreeing with that till I die.
To me, once the caddy comes in, the rangefinder can go. Until the caddy comes in, I think there's no point in it disappearing. I don't see it as an issue.
No. I'm never taking that.
Well, I just think that the way you make changing the way the courses are designed for the top pros is going to do, even with or without rangefinders, is the only answer to if you want to say professional disc golf is too easy for the top level pros. Rangefinder, stroke here or there. We might literally talk about a whole tournament in 2 strokes.
Yeah, but it's still a step in the wrong direction, regardless.
Well, okay, so now instead of averaging 14 down, why averaged 14 and a half down.
Why do we have to have it? It's fine that we have it at the AM level and to prep for a course, but it doesn't need to exist in the pro level. It just doesn't look pro to me.
See, to me, it looks
because
pro.
and maybe it's because I've been watching PGA.
I think that's exactly what it is. To me, that.
But that is the pinnacle
I think the biggest
of
thing
pro
to me,
golf.
Pro golf, yeah, but not the pinnacle of pro disc golf. To me,
there's parallels. There's parallels.
There's a lot of parallels, but there's also a lot of stuff that disc golf.
It doesn't look professional. Pull out a robot telescope and shoot out the distance.
See, to me, it does.
It looks more professional to look at the notes that you've took on the course because.
But you're asking the player to play the course, learn the course, practice his putting, practice his driving, and use a rangefinder and take notes on the course, from each spot that he expects himself to land.
It's not that hard.
In 2 days.
It's not that hard. How many distances on a course do you? With that rangefinder are really super crucial. There might be 5 holes that
it might not even be the distance as much as it's the elevation change.
Well then, yeah, and I don't even want to talk about that. That's another huge advantage of those things. Not only are you getting distance, but you're getting elevation change. You're literally it's like we're a bunch of robots all reading
all
the
I'm
data.
Saying is to me it looks more professional because you never see an amateur treat the game with that much respect and paying attention. Of thinking
You're
through,
crazy.
thinking through their shot to the detail of, let me pull out my rangefinder and see the angle of change.
They're pulling it out because they can.
Because it helps.
Not because they want to show more respect to the game of disc golf.
Not because they want to show more respect.
Not because they want to think through more. It's
how seriously they're treating it.
I don't think they're treating it any more seriously. They just have the
option.
They
probably aren't, but it looks it. It gives off this essence to me of professionalism.
Okay, but all the companies, all the big companies that are going to sponsor disc golf, they're using pro golf as their model. Don't deny that.
But okay, if Nike's I agree. But if Nike's looking in and it's I can't sponsor this. That guy used a rangefinder.
I'm telling you, Nike, when they look to sponsor disc golf, they're going to go to their golf guys. I guarantee it.
And what golf
those golf guys are going to
joke because he used a rangefinder.
I'm telling you, they're weird. They're weird about it. They're going to see the rangefinders. They're the pros, the best players in the world.
You think they're going to look at? They're going to look at disc golf, and the single thing they're going to pick out about all of disc golf compared to golf,
is a
rangefinder.
But I'm saying they're going to look at it as a lot Okay, they're gonna look at it in detail. And if I am looking at it and I see the best player in the world needs a robot to assist him to win,
Paul never will.
So nobody needs to.
But I mean, okay, so is a cart a competitive advantage?
I mean, technically, yeah, I guess.
So are we getting rid of carts? It makes the sport easier. They don't have to.
That's way more marginal. Way more marginal.
But I'm just saying stuff like that where.
And you're allowed to use a caddy, so that doesn't.
Sure.
Carts are used. That's a dumb argument. That's a straw man right there.
All I was thinking of was Paul will never use a cart just because Paul personally doesn't like the way a cart uses, feels, looks. So Paul will always use a backpack.
Or have somebody carry his bag.
But that's
occasion.
I don't know where I was going with it. But Paul will never use a cart, and Paul will never use a rangefinder because Paul
is a champion.
But I'm saying the players who are like up and coming, there's just certain players with a mindset that need a caddy or need something to trust.
Then they're not good enough. Pack up the car and get out of here.
All right. I don't know. In the comments, if you're on,
imagine getting that fired up for rangefinders. By the way, I don't want to kill all your dreams, but Bushnell didn't make a rangefinder for disc golf. They took one that was sitting in there.
If you're killing anyone's dreams with that, then they just haven't thought through the situation.
They took one that was sitting in their warehouse, reprogrammed it to show in feet instead of yards, and said, we're going to slap disc golf on it and sell 1 million. And they were brilliant, and I applaud them. It was brilliant, but let's not act like they were like in the lab designing this rangefinder for disc golf specifically.
I absolutely agree with you on that one, but it is sick.
I just feel like there's people that I love that Bushnell is a part of the game though. It's a big name. Like I was like when I looked on their website and saw that there was the disc golf rangefinder, I was like, that's cool. But it's not for the pros.
Okay.
Brody Smith will agree with me on that.
He uses one in the rounds.
But I think he would still agree with me because he can. But I think he'll agree with me.
Probably.
Yeah.
That means that the majority of the audience will be on my side.
Got a point. It's me and Mr. Smith against the world.
What I was about to say is if you're watching this right now, comment down below what you think about rangefinders. And if you're listening to this, send us a DM on Instagram at Foundation
I only want responses to the one argument. Whatever else came out of that hubbub, I don't care. The only one that I'm really going to defend to the death is that disc golf, we need to find ways to make it harder. Rangefinders make it easier. It's a step in the wrong direction. So we can have them, just not during professional tournament rounds.
Okay, I want to get on to a few other topics before we wrap up the show because we're already pushing an hour and we're already past the time we're supposed to be at home. So the other one that I saw brought up was by Dixon Jowers in his Facebook group. I think it's actually his Facebook group for his podcast, On the Box with Dixon Jowers. But he brought up the question of, like, what is the actual rule stating benefit goes to players, right? Because that's said all the time on the course.
All right.
There's, like, a rule thing brought up. It's like, well, the benefit goes to the player. So here is the rule, and then I'll explain why I think it's interesting and might be misinterpreted sometimes. It's Rule 801.03. When a group cannot reach a majority decision regarding a rule, the ruling is based on the interpretation that is most beneficial to the thrower. So that is obviously exactly what we thought it said. Don't think anyone's shocked by that. But what I haven't seen implemented is the majority. Based on the majority, because there's been multiple cards that I've been on and multiple cards that I've watched or caddied or done media for where there's been a questionable lie. The second the first player walks up and is like, it's too close to make a call, whatever benefit goes to the player, then everyone else's opinion just immediately stops right there. I have seen on my card, I have had where the player walks up, the actual thrower walks up and is like, look, I think I'm OB, but I mean, can you guys come look? Then I look and I'm like, yeah, I think that's OB. And then this one other guy walks up and is like, well, look, man, starts making the argument for it to be in bounds. To where, and then by the end of that, he's like, look, to me, it's too close to call. I think the benefit should go to the player. To where the majority, if we just let the chips fall where they were, the majority is going to call the player OB.
Right.
But as soon as benefit to the player gets brought up and it's a close call, then you almost feel like a jerk to say.
Most tournaments I've played in, guys are always trying to help people out. It seems like that, and that's part of like the game of golf. I feel like guys, like, you're supposed to like respect each other and like not be jerks, and like if it's a really close call, like usually guys will help you out. And like whenever you're like placing a lie, like, is this where it went out, like guys are like, like that's fine usually, right? Like people are nice about
I've
that.
never heard someone be like,
oh, that's not where that went out.
Are you kidding me? Back yourself up 5 feet, mister.
But you make an interesting point about like maybe walking up to that disc, 3 of those guys think that thing is out of bounds, but the guy who speaks first is the one who mentions the benefit of the player thing. But if it's not the player talking about it, then what motive does he have to help that guy out, really, other than being some kind of, rules aficionado? So like it still seems kind of genuine. I don't know.
To me, I haven't seen like a blatant disregard of the rule of like, everyone agrees it's OB, but someone's like, well, benefit of the player, it's close.
I've never seen it happen like on a big enough stage to where I'm like, that needs to be addressed and changed.
No, I don't think it needs to be addressed and changed. I just think
it's a bit ambiguous.
I do think that. So I was going to bring that up too, but I'll talk about that right after I say this. I do think that maybe the OB rule should be, because to me, when I read this, it's when the group can't reach a majority decision. Like that needs to be the first step. So like the first step needs to be, what's everyone's thoughts? Is this OB or in?
Right.
And if it's you and I go, it's OB, and Joe and Schmo say it's in, then the benefit just goes to the player naturally.
Fine, yeah.
That's how the rule I interpreted, how I read it. Whereas right now, it's like the benefit to the player is just integrated into the negotiation if it's in or not. Whereas it should be, everyone makes their statement, is it in or is it out? Oh, it's split, benefit goes to the player.
Yeah.
I think that's why the rule was written, but I don't think that's how the rule's used.
Right.
Which that's why I brought it up, as I thought that was interesting, is like benefit to the player kind of, and this is only talking about OB. Benefit to the player has been brought up regarding pretty much every rule imaginable.
Foot fault's probably another good one for that.
Yeah, but it's just like when a group can't reach a majority decision regarding a ruling. I guess not just technically OB, but in general, it's like to me, it should be in the sport of disc golf. Everyone makes their decision first, and then which foot fault I think is an ambiguous one, because if you call me on a foot fault, it doesn't have to be a majority. There's just one person has to second it.
Yeah.
But, when it all comes down to it, I think the PDGA intentionally leaves like this rule and the previous rule about excessive time kind of open-ended, because at the end of the day, like rules are there so that you can call someone if they're intentionally breaking them for their advantage type of a thing. But I've never made a rules call on someone. I think I might have once. I called someone possibly on a foot fault, but it was because they hit the first tree in front of them, and it was when you could just rethrow.
Yeah, I sure haven't. Because my thing is like, and it's probably because I'm not very good and I haven't been in many heated like tournament, like down the stretch lead card situations, but like I'm usually a lot more worried about my game than whatever the heck else somebody else is doing.
Well, also, like, when...
I'm only ever getting fired up if I'm, like, going head-to-head to somebody down the stretch, and then they do something shady. Then I'm going to be like, whoa.
Well, I think if they do something shady, I have no problem calling someone, because in that situation, you're not the jerk.
Well, not even shady, but, like, if they do something wrong.
But, like, okay, so technically a foot fault. If I have the disc, right, and I plant my foot instead of one disc length, like a disc length and a mini behind, that's a foot fault.
Yeah.
But if I'm just like running up in an open field
on a run up, I'm never. I mean,
if you slip and kick a disc, foot fault. But like, who's calling?
Yeah.
That?
On a run up, I'm like, it's hard. That is one of the harder things in disc golf, is like planting your feet. And some people are very good at it, and some people are awful at it and are gonna step over their mini, on top of it. But the only really way you're getting a super advantage with that is if you're going significantly to the left or right to try to get around something. If I see that happen, then I'm like, all right, that was not good.
I have before told someone, like, hey, just a heads up, I'm not going to call you on it, but someone else might, that you foot faulted here.
Yeah.
I've never called someone on it. Only place I could see myself, knowing myself, that I would actually call someone is on the putting green. And I feel like on the putting green, if you're watching someone close enough to know they're going to foot fault, you have time beforehand to be like, hey, and I've said this to people, and I've had plenty of people say this to me, like, hey, your left foot's a little bit ahead of your right on your straddle putt.
Yeah.
Or, hey, your right foot's not quite behind your mini. You can address it beforehand. So, to me, like, whenever I'm about to make a rules call or I think about making a rules call, I feel like a jerk.
Yeah.
And so I don't do it. And I don't know if that's right. And I don't know what the answer is. I don't know what the solution is. I don't even know why I brought it up. But I just think that's...
All right.
I think that's kind of where disc golf is.
Yeah.
And is that a problem? Not yet.
No, that's kind of the game of golf. And like in the PGA, there's like rules marshals that you can call over to help make decisions, but like you're just kind of expected to follow the rules of the game.
Exactly.
Because like it's a game of etiquette. Golf is a game of etiquette at the end of the day. Like you should know the etiquette and you should do it. the right way. And at the highest level, you're going to be on camera. So I really hope you're not trying to do anything stupid because somebody's filming you.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's about it for this week. There was one or two more topics I had written down, but we can push those off. I don't really think they're that important because, I mean, realistically, they were just more little rules things, and the biggest rule one was the excessive time, and we hit that and then some. So that's going to wrap it up for this week. Thank you so much for tuning in. Just some brief foundation news. We did have a small restock of Discraft hit the site, and a little insider info if you're listening to this podcast. Pretty soon we're going to have a Ripped Revenge restock.
Yes.
Coming out. It'll be in tandem with the video, so the second you see a Ripped Revenge video on our YouTube page, Ripped Revenge decks just hit our site. Other than that, there's some new, rather large stuff in the works, behind the scenes. Contracts have to be signed and stuff like that, so I can't say anything yet, but there's some cool stuff coming up that you will know about shortly.
Yeah, exciting.
I think that's going to be it.
Nothing more I can say on it, that's for sure.
All right, we'll talk to you next week, and I can't wait to use the Rangefinder in the tournament this week.